I'm very happy to hand over to our journalist from RSCI, Emiliano Boss, who will be in a conversation with Pascal Hausseur. He's the Vice Admiral and General Director of the Institut Fondation Méditerranée d'études stratégiques in France. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Diana. Here we are now with another conversation, or let's say an interview, one-to-one with Admiral Pascal Hausseur. Thank you so much for being with us today. And I would start immediately from what we saw during the last months or the difficult 2020. The COVID brought a kind of economical collapse, but now we are seeing some positive signs, some improvement. Admiral, do you think that the crisis that have marked the MEM region, we are talking about is both sides, all sides of the Mediterranean, will somehow benefit from this economical improvement?
Well, first of all, thank you for this invitation and this opportunity to share with you some thoughts about the situation of the Mediterranean Middle East region, which is one of the most tense region in the world. And so it is worthwhile to spend, I think, some time to try to have a better understanding about what's happened here and to find out some way to ease these tensions. So, and one of the tools to ease the tensions are the economy. And this question and the panel dedicated to the economic issues are very interesting because they raise the question of the weight of the economy in the international affair today. And in my view, this weight is changing dramatically because of the strategic rupture we are living. And this rupture, have two main strengths, and in short, one, history is back, and two, the West is fragile. First point, history is back. After the end of the Cold War, 30 years ago, during the 90s, the economy has been considered as the alpha and omega of human relations, including international relations. All the other aspects, culture, politics, religion, military power, and so on, all these aspects became secondary. And it seems that at that time, that nothing could prevent the growth of the economic sphere. Remember, the development of the GDP was supposed to lead to social development, to ease tensions, to ease societal progress, democratization, and so on. It was the Fukuyama's end of history paradigm, which underpinned, in fact, all the analysis for 30 years, or nearly 40 years, 30 years. And the Mediterranean was a point of application of this. Let's just recall the situation in the 90s. The convergence between the two shores towards the European model was considered as inevitable. And this convergence underpinned all the agreement signed at those time. For the EU, the Barcelona Summit and the Euro-Mediterranean Partnership in '95. Remember as well the OSCE Mediterranean Partnership for Cooperation in '94. NATO, NATO's Mediterranean Dialogue in '97, even the Israeli-Palestinian Oslo Accords in '93. Well, all these agreements was supposed to lead, because of the economy, to the quasi-automatic pacification of the region. And this region was supposed to gradually integrate into, I would say, a form of a European melting pot. But clearly, it's not the case today. Just one example, 2010 was the target date for the establishment of the free trade area in this region, in the Med. We are clearly very far from it. So one point, history is back. Second point, the second big trend which characterizes the new world, not only here but here as well, it's what I call the de-Westernization of the world. This de-Westernization was already thought, I would say, unavoidable because of the rise of China, but it has been fostered by the catastrophic management of the unipolar period by the US, and with Europe as follower. And so I think that the West lost a lot of its credibility and of its attractiveness during because of that. And the other failures, internal or external, I would say military defeats in Iraq, in Afghanistan. Look at the fall of Kabul, which is a very good illustration of it yesterday, a few days ago. But as well, internal failures, inequalities, individualism, and so on. All this trend damaged the prestige, I would say, of the West.
So, Admiral, you mentioned new trends, history is back, something is changing, and economy is not enough. But what about the impact of these new trends that you just mentioned in terms of security in the region we are talking about, specifically in the Mediterranean?
In my view, the Mediterranean basin is subject to two phenomena. The first one is the rising of north-south tensions. We have disparities between North and South, and these disparities are growing in nearly all the domains: economy, development, demography, cultural, social, political systems. All the metrics, all the charts, all the maps show growing disparities, which are, that's another point, increasingly perceived by the population. And this discrepancy generates a growing frustration and tensions within the countries and between the two shores of the Mediterranean. And these frustrations are exploited by authoritarian powers often, or ideology, to create, to reinforce a strong resentment towards Europe. And that's the first point. So rising of tensions, structural tensions. And the second point, the second big change in this region is when you compare with the situation as it was 25 years ago, is a rise of the geopolitical competitors. This competition was fueled by the retractation of the US, which has been very sensitive since Obama period, but Trump and Biden area will be the same. So a retraction of the US, and it gives the space for regional power to take advantage of this space left free to emancipate and to defend their interest more and more bluntly without restraint, and that's clearly very blatant in the Mediterranean. The use of force is more and more disinhibited because the international rules are more and more considered as Western rules. And that's part of the de-Westernization I mentioned. So very shortly, Russia is coming back, is taking advantage of the withdrawal, US withdrawal to regain its lost influence in Middle East, in Syria, in the Red Sea, in North Africa. Turkey is clearly a newcomer. It plays a kind of jeu à trois, with the US, Russian, and to consolidate its glacis in Syria, in Iraq, in Azerbaijan, in northern Cyprus, but as well to extend its influence in Syria again, in Iraq, in Libya, in Somalia, in the Balkans. They are more and more present in the Balkans, and to strengthen the lever of pressure vis-à-vis Europe. Migration, gas, diaspora. So Turkey is clearly a new, very strong actor in this area, with an increasingly strong military tool, which gives another concern on it. Another point about these actors, it's about the actors who were previously in the Western sphere, I would say, alongside the US, which are more and more autonomous vis-à-vis the US. And you have Egypt in Libya, for example. You have the politic of Israel in the Red Sea or in Morocco. You have Qatar in support of the Muslim Brotherhood networks in Turkey, in Libya, and you have the Emirates in opposition with Qatar policy in this area as well. So this, I would say, rebalancing of powers favors a kind of, I would say, Middle Eastization of the Mediterranean. And that's a kind of a return to sender, I would say, of the attempt to westernize the greater Middle East, as Bush said in the previous decade. So another example of this trend is Iran increasing involvement to support its presence in Syria, in Lebanon, or alongside Hamas in the Med. Last big power which is playing in the Med is China, more discreet because its security issues are more in the Gulf and Indian Ocean to preserve and to protect the transit of its energy flow from the Gulf, and Djibouti base is very key in that policy. But in the Med, China plays more on the economic side. The Mediterranean is a commercial axis which gives to China an access to the European market, and the main point for them is to secure participation in big ports in the region, with Piraeus, which is a center of gravity of all this framework. But Haifa, Marseille, and other ports are very, very under scrutiny from China. And in the southern shore, it gives a foothold on Africa through infrastructure and export partnership or hydrocarbons, and it allows China to have a strategy on influence in Africa, which is key to obtain raw material, for example, especially for raw materials. So last point with China, because it's interesting to see that China it's an actor which needs to improve regional stabilization, which is not the case of all the other actors, as you can imagine. So you can see that nearly everybody is playing in this region already, which is already under tension. That makes the Mediterranean, well, once again, the most volatile region in the world, alongside with the South China Sea.
Thank you so much, Admiral. I keep some of these thoughts and I, in a way, pass them to my colleague Luca Fasani for the next panel, which will be centering and focusing on economy. I felt a bit of a pessimism in your vision, in your words. Maybe we can go back on that. Also, we will touch something about the role of Europe, but I would stop our conversation for the moment here, and I'm happy to give the floor to the next panel, which is focusing exactly on these topics. Admiral, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for this discussion. Thank you.